Did the Rangers do enough this offseason to not be looked at as the old guys in the Metro? And were the Blue Jackets desperate when they hired Mike Babcock? All of that in today's Metro crossover with Locked On Rangers, Jon Chik.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Hayden Houshorn. With me in a second is my co-host, Jay Foster. We're here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of your favorite team and ours, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Thank you for making this your first listen every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. Free right here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, and we're free also on the SiriusXM app. Today, Jon Chik from Locked On Rangers was here. We got to ask him some questions on how the Rangers did this offseason and how he is expecting them to perform in this upcoming season. And then he asked us some questions about the Blue Jackets. So let's waste no time. Let's get into that conversation right now.
In our final Metropolitan matchup before we get into actual preseason talk, we have got Jon Chik here of Locked On Rangers, a team that the Blue Jackets have struggled with in the past. I think it's probably the most generous way of saying that, but the Blue Jackets have a lot of new faces. The Rangers have a lot of new faces. So it'll be interesting to see how these teams are going to match up against each other, I think. So let's start off with one of your new faces. You guys picked up Blake Wheeler from the Winnipeg Jets after his contract was bought out. I believe you picked him up for super cheap. What kind of player are you guys hoping to get from Blake Wheeler?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, I mean, he did just turn 37 years old at the end of August there. So I think the first thing you're kind of keeping your fingers crossed is that he can hold up for at least one more season. The encouraging thing there is he's coming off of a solid showing with the Jets this past year, kind of a so-so middle-of-the-road Jets team. I want to say like 55 points this past season and performed well in the playoffs as well. Had, I think like 6 points in 5 games, something along those lines. But as far as, how he's going to fit in with the Rangers, I really like this pickup because, yeah, he is a little bit older. He's not exactly prime Blake Wheeler at this point. He is kind of on the back nine of his career. But when you look at the Rangers, the spot where they are the thinnest, I would say, is and has been for a while right wing. And that's, of course, his position. So he's somebody that can step in there. It's going to be interesting to see, who his line mates are, what line he ends up playing on, if he's on, which power play unit he's going to be on. But great facilitator. Great passer, and, somebody that gives you a little bit of a veteran presence in that locker room. And, again, there are some Ranger fans that have some reservations due to his age. But, look, you got him for $800,000. I mean, it's only $25K over the league minimum. So I'm not so sure that you would have been able to do a whole lot more with that money. So to me, the price was right. And again, the fact that he plays a position where the Rangers have been thin, I like this pickup a lot. And, now you just keep your fingers crossed that he's got something left in the tank for at least one more season here.
Alex Lafreniere is now 21 years old. You guys took him first overall back in the 2020 draft. He just signed a 2-year deal worth $4.65 million. So maybe a little bit less than you'd expect a number one overall to sign, but still he's very young. And but just a 2-year contract, John, does that make you a little nervous that either the Rangers might be considering splitting with Lafreniere at the end of it or vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say for sure. He's going to be an RFA again at the end of the current 2-year deal that he just signed. It's not exactly, a 2-year deal. You look at like Tim Stützle just got like an 8-year deal. He was in that draft class too from the Senators. But, the Rangers where they are right now, not having a ton of cap space, I think this is the kind of bridge deal that does make some sense. And when you look at Lafreniere's numbers, he hasn't really, I mean, there's been flashes here and there. And, 2 years ago in the playoffs, he was very good. He's a tenacious player and a grittier player than I think a lot of people realize. And the talent is there. But I don't feel like it's like a gross underpayment by the Rangers, or I don't really think they messed up by only giving him 2 years. I think basically what happens is, you let these 2 years go by here and you see where everything is. Hopefully by then, he's taken a couple of steps forward. I mean, it's kind of a catch-22 because you want him to get better and better, but you also realize, the better he does, the more that's going to drive up his price in a couple of years. And there's this thing called the salary cap that's given just about every team's fits right now. So Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with the extension here. I figured it would eventually get done. It took a while. He was kind of the last piece of the puzzle this offseason. The Rangers were making other moves, and he was an RFA for a long, long time, but it eventually got done. And yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what he can do this upcoming season. Curious to see with him, again, do they keep the kid line together? Does he get, tossed into a top 6 role? I think that's possible. There was a short-lived line last year of Lafreniere, Mika Zibanejad, and Capo Caco that I really had a lot of fun watching, and curious to see if new Laviolette, the new coach, if they might end up going back to that at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, we can't have a Blue Jackets Rangers Squadcast crossover episode without talking about Artemi Panarin, who is still one of the all-time greats for Blue Jackets fans, I think, and kind of the one that got away. What has the Artemi Panarin experience been like from a Rangers fan perspective? Because we really loved him here in Columbus.
Yeah, no, I mean, he kind of burst onto the scene. And I remember, I mean, it's hard to believe he's been here as long as he has. I believe now entering year 5 with the Rangers. But I mean, the opening night reaction that he got the first season here, I mean, the crowd just came unglued. They were really excited. And, some people kind of critique the Rangers for that because, I thought you guys were rebuilding. It's like, yeah, they are. But, this is kind of the centerpiece of the rebuild. This is you got to have a big time player. You got to have a reason why other people are going to want to come here and play with Artemi Panarin. Having said all that, he certainly came under fire from Ranger fans this past season in the playoffs because 7 games against the Devils, the Rangers lose in the first round in a season where a lot of people were hoping and maybe even expecting them to make a serious run at the Cup. And, he was kind of, fairly or unfairly, and I would say, fairly for the most part, he was the target of a lot of, vitriol from Ranger fans because, he only had 2 points in the 7-game series, and they were both in the first period of game 1. So he just wasn't able to do a whole lot. Didn't get any puck luck either. But, it's one of those things. It was just a regrettable, bad playoff series, not just for Panarin, but for the entire team. I'm hoping that, Ranger fans, he's still their guy, and they'll still support him on opening night this season and beyond. But, Panarin, he'll be the first one to tell you. He was very, very accountable after that playoff loss, the series lost, and he knows he has to be better. He'll be the first one to tell you that he just didn't play well enough. And looking for Artemi Panarin, if the Rangers are able to get back to the playoffs to get his shot at redemption this upcoming season. Hopefully that does happen.
Let's talk about another former Blue Jacket, now New York Ranger, and that is Jonathan Quick. The Rangers signed him for Blue Jackets legend, the one that got away, the real one that got away. He didn't even come to Columbus, so he can't really get away if he never shows up. But you guys got Jonathan Quick, and he's obviously back up to Igor Shesterkin, who will be a Vezina candidate again this year, we all assume. He's that goalie. He's one of the best in the league right now. You think Quick is up for backing him up this year?
I think so. And obviously, his game has slipped a little bit in recent seasons. The last 5 or so seasons, he just hasn't exactly been vintage Jonathan Quick. This is the first time, though, that Quick is entering an NHL season where he is the clear-cut backup. There's no discussion to be had. You're not going to be playing as much as you're used to, and I'm sure he understands that. I'm sure he appreciates that, and he's going to be behind Igor Shesterkin. He wouldn't have signed with the Rangers if he was looking to, compete for a starting job somewhere. So my hope is that with a little bit less wear and tear and kind of a smaller role, him kind of playing sporadically. I mean, on one hand, that is something that he's going to have to get used to. But on the other hand, he is older now, I believe 37 for Quick, or 38 even. So, hopefully a little bit less wear and tear, he can do a little bit better. And the Rangers do have kind of a secret weapon. Their goalie coach, Benoit Allaire, he has worked wonders with everybody from Henrik Lundqvist to Igor Shesterkin to even guys like Antti Ranta, Cam Talbot. And now he gets kind of a reclamation project in Jonathan Quick. So I'm curious to see if he can pull that off, if he can kind of help a veteran kind of turn back the clock a couple of years. So I'm good with it. The Rangers had to save money in certain places, and backup goalie was always going to be one of them. And if anything happens to Igor, like in the playoffs, knock on wood, I'll take my chances with Jonathan Quick, who's got all this playoff success over, just like a random backup goalie from around the league.
Yeah, I feel like Igor Shesterkin is going to be playing a lot this season. There's no point going out and spending a ton of money on a guy that will probably start, 20, 25 games, maybe. Yeah. So, and I like Jonathan Quick. I am a Jonathan Quick apologist, I think. And if you give him, like you say, you give him less ice time, give him fewer games, I think probably you'll get some half-decent performances out of Quick. But I want to swing back to the young guys on the Rangers for a minute. I'm a big fan of their 2021 first-round pick, Brennan Othmann. How close do you think he is into making the NHL full-time? Is he someone that you are kind of keeping an eye on to make an impact this season or maybe a couple of seasons' time?
Yeah, I'm keeping as close of an eye on him as any Ranger prospect because I don't know if you've had a chance to look at his numbers in the OHL, but I mean, it's video game like. It's just ridiculous the amount of points that he's piled up the past couple of seasons. Won the OHL championship with the Peterborough Petes this past season. And, it's not just the offense of the points and everything. The guy's a wrecking ball out there. I mean, he lays some big time hits on people. So he's somebody that just looks to be the total package as far as him. And he's actually going to be competing in the Rangers Flyers rookie camp in a couple of days here. As far as him being with the Rangers this year, I mean, I don't think he'll be out there on opening night. Never say never. We'll see how it goes. The roster seems to be full right now. But, if he goes to the AHL and he lights it up and he looks comfortable and he looks poised and ready for the next level, I definitely would not rule it out. The Rangers have not been shy about letting their young guys play and maybe calling them up early, relative to what some other teams might do. So, I get the feeling we might at some point this season, maybe like around the midway point, we might get a Brennan Othmann call up and definitely looking forward to seeing what he can do. I don't want them to do it too early, but they've got that move in their back pocket whenever they want to make it.
Yeah, I just want to point out for Blue Jackets fans who aren't familiar with Othmann, I just went and looked up his stats for this season. In 16 games with the Flint Firebirds, he had 24 points. He then got traded to the Peterborough Petes, where he had 43 points in 40 regular season games and then 25 points in 23 playoff games.
Yeah,
Rangers fans should definitely be excited about this kid.
It was even crazier the year before some of the stats that he put up. But yeah, no, he really piles up the points in the OHL, and I think it was a really nice pick. The one issue is that he can play some right wing, but he's mostly a left winger, and the Rangers have some kind of a logjam at left wing right now. But I suppose not the worst problem to have either.
Okay, we can wrap up these Rangers questions with this last one here, and that is Peter Laviolette. He is making his sixth trip to, and he's taking over his sixth team, I should say. But this is home for him. He played 12 games for the Rangers back in the day. So how great is it to have that homecoming going for Rangers fans?
I'll be honest, up until, obviously, the Rangers, they need a new coach, and I'm doing a lot of episodes about who the next coach might be, and I'm looking at Laviolette, and I said, oh, yeah, he played in the NHL, and all of his games, short-lived though it was with the Rangers.
12.
Yeah,
12 games.
So, going to be a little bit of an adjustment period because I think me and other Ranger fans all very used to seeing him coach other Metro teams. The Rangers and Flyers, when he coached in Philly, they had some nasty games between each other. And then, of course, he's been with the Caps the past handful of seasons, 3 seasons. And you had that whole Tom Wilson debacle a few years ago with Panarin. So, bit of an adjustment period, but the guy wins. I mean, he's taken 3 different teams to the Stanley Cup final. And the thing that I've been encouraged about is you go back and look at those rosters of the teams that he's taken to the finals. A lot of young players on those rosters, and the Rangers have some young players that need to take the next step. So I was just kind of so about it, but I'm kind of talking myself into it as we get closer to the season. Laviolette being the new coach here.
Yeah, he was a guy that we looked at for the Blue Jackets back when we were also doing a ton of episodes about, who should the Blue Jackets pick for their coach? And he was pretty high on our list, I think. So yeah. Hopefully he is good for your team. We're going to take a quick break. And first, though, I got to tell you guys about FanDuel because it's America's #1 sportsbook. The NFL season kicked off last week, and there's been some pretty interesting results. And here's the good thing. In FanDuel, if you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win the regular season. That's all you have to do is pick any team to win the Super Bowl. You're going to get bonus bets for every victory. So if you had picked the Jets, for example, you would have gotten some bonus bets for that. If you had picked the Lions, you would have gotten some bonus bets for that. You can use these bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. You can even use them on things like betting on the NHL, which is back in, I believe, exactly a month as of the time of us recording this, which is super exciting. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, official sportsbook of the NFL and also us, the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On New York Rangers. I'm Jay Foster. That's Hayden Householm. We've got Jon Chik of Locked On Rangers here, and we're talking about the Rangers, the Blue Jackets, and the Metropolitan Division as a whole, because I feel like the Metropolitan Division, for a minute there, looked like it was getting weaker, and then suddenly last season turned into the Thunderdome, and I think it's going to be even better this year. I think every team except Philadelphia got better in the offseason.
Yeah.
And maybe like the Capitals, so they seem like they're kind of going down. But how do you feel the Rangers are going to do in the Metropolitan Division this season? Where do you think they're going to end up in terms of standings?
I mean, to your point, it's so difficult to predict this, but I could see them maybe coming in second place once again to the Carolina Hurricanes. We've kind of gotten to the point where it's almost boring to pick the Hurricanes to win the division, but they keep winning it. I mean, you mentioned that it's the Thunderdome, and every single season the Canes seem to come out on top. This past season, they emerged from that portion of the playoffs. They go to the Eastern Conference Final. Of course, they get swept by the Panthers. And what was a more competitive series than the 4-0 series score would indicate. But yeah, I've got them, probably winning the division. To my knowledge, I don't think they had any significant losses this offseason. And I think the Rangers, they're kind of right where they were. Obviously, they lost a lot of guys that they acquired at the trade deadline this past year, but the core is still in place. You've got young guys like Kakko, Lafreniere, Filipino, and then on defense, Braden Schneider, K'Andre Miller, all these guys seem to be, moving in the right direction. So I think the Rangers are going to be another powerhouse in that division. I don't want to say this, but I feel like the Penguins are going to find a way back into the playoffs. It's just one of those things where I hope I'm wrong about this, but it almost feels like them missing the playoffs might have been a blessing in disguise because it is a little bit of an older team. And, I know that sounds crazy, but they don't have to go through the grind of, a long postseason run. And now they add Erik Karlsson, one of the biggest moves of the offseason. And you got to think that, they're in a similar situation that maybe Boston was in this past year where they know they're running out of chances. This could be like an empty the tank kind of a season for the Penguins. So I would not be surprised if they do better. The Devils, I think they'll be back in the mix. And honestly, yeah, the Blue Jackets with all the injuries they had last year. And, I think they've now upgraded a coach, controversial though Babcock might be. I could see them certainly moving up the ranks a little bit and possibly making a run at the playoffs. But those are just kind of some general thoughts. How about each of you? I mean, how do you see this whole thing shaking out here?
Yeah, we're kind of sitting in the same boat, I think. We've been talking a lot about, we think that there are probably going to be 5 teams from the Metro that make the playoffs. I think they're going to get both the wild card spots. The Penguins, I can't figure out. The Penguins are either going to be really, really good this season, or I think they're going to be disappointing to a lot of people, and I can't figure out which way it goes. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Penguins, the Islanders, and the Blue Jackets fighting it out for those 2 wildcard spots. But I think Hayden agrees with me here. I think it's pretty clear that the top 3 teams are going to be the Devils, the Hurricanes, and the Rangers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Rangers did enough to kind of establish themselves as in that mix with the Hurricanes and Devils. It still feels like just that those teams are based off their age a step ahead of the Rangers, but the Rangers went 7 games with the Devils last year. So
you can't count out Igor Shesterkin.
Yeah, you can't count out.
You would be a fool to be like, no, the Rangers are going to be bad this season, because I feel
I know. Yeah,
Igor Shesterkin can carry this team through, much like Henrik Lundqvist did for like 15 seasons. I think,
and even so,
similar things from Shesterkin.
At times, I think there's kind of an over-reliance, both with Lundqvist, back in the day, and now with Igor Shesterkin. I think there's times, they haven't done it as much in recent seasons now that they've improved, but for a while there, it just kind of felt like, whatever, they'll make the save. We're good, they'll stand on their head.
It's fine.
Yeah, you can't do that every night, man. You got to help you out your goalie every now and then. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Igor Shesterkin, big time X factor for this team, and it's the same thing with him as it was with Henrik Lundqvist. For all those years, when and if the Rangers make the playoffs, you always feel like you got a shot to beat anybody you're playing because of your goalie, and I don't think the importance of that can be understated. So. Yeah, man, just been a pleasure to watch Igor Shesterkin these last handful of seasons here.
I didn't mean to say that the Rangers were old, by the way, because they're really not. With Lafreniere, Kakko, K'Andre Miller, like they have so much young talent. It's just I think they've been rebuilding. They've, like you said, this is Panarin's 5th year. And the Devils we didn't expect them to be good last year. So we think kind of the Devils are the next up team. But really the Rangers are kind of there step for step, and then getting Nick Bonino this year and Blake Wheeler. I think if for those who are looking for good odds, the Rangers might be a sneaky good pick to win this division, because eventually the Canes are going to lose it. The Canes can't win it forever. But.
Yeah, that is true. It's funny, the Rangers, their average age has gone up pretty significantly this offseason, but I think that's misleading because as we've been talking about, they had Blake Wheeler. He's on a 1-year deal. He's older. They had Jonathan Quick, 1-year deal. He's older. Nick Bonino is like 35 now, I think. So, that's a little bit misleading. Yeah, the average age has gone up, but the core is still, relatively young. But actually, a question I want to ask both of you. So to your point, we've all kind of hit on this a little bit here in today's episode, but 2 years ago, the Rangers come out of nowhere. They're 2 wins away from going to the final. They really surprised everybody that year. And this past year, it's the Devils. They were moving in the right direction, but I don't think anybody was ready for what they did. Can the Blue Jackets be that team this year? Is there any reason for that much optimism where they can just shock everybody and, really make a run and be a firm playoff team this year?
I think it's unlikely, but
Okay.
I don't think it's impossible.
Right.
We've seen before, we were just talking about Jonathan Quick, the LA Kings in, I want to say 2012, were the 8th seed in the West. So they snuck in by like the skin of their teeth and then just took off. The Panthers this season, look at what they did. It's not completely impossible. I think, if to win the Stanley Cup or to have a chance of winning the Stanley Cup, all you have to do is make the playoffs, And then if your goalie gets hot, or if, one of your players does like a Matthew Tkachuk and just turns the dial up to 11 basically every game, it's possible. We could see Elvis become the goalie that we think he is, and he could carry this team. We could see Johnny Gaudreau, have another 115-point season. It feels unlikely. I'm not betting on the Blue Jackets being a contender this season, but yeah, I think I wouldn't be the most surprised in the world if they somehow have this miracle Cinderella run out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think on paper, I think if they have everybody healthy, I think they're just as good as some of these teams that we just talked about that can win the division. The problem is they didn't have the coach last year. They haven't necessarily had all the guys available as well. I mean, Patrick Laine, Zach Werenski, and Boone Jenner all missed significant time last year. And those 3 guys are really supposed to be part of this core that's supposed to be leading this next era of Blue Jackets hockey. So they need to keep those guys healthy. Of course, that can be said about many other teams, but definitely for the Blue Jackets, as long as they can stay healthy and as long as they made the right hire at head coach, and even as long as they made the right hire at goaltender coach, bringing in Nicholas Backstrom, the longtime Wild goalie, that was a huge addition that they made. So they just did so much to revamp the team, and Jarmo does so much year to year that you just can kind of always expect the Jackets to be in that conversation of, are they next up? But the truth is they just haven't had any time to really play together because they're constantly getting new players all the time. And even when they get new players that get in the organization and play for the team, the old guys are hurt. So it's like they're not playing together. So it's this constant cycle. And as long as if the stars align, then yes, the Blue Jackets could be in the playoffs and be that next, New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Oh, go ahead, Jay. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
Because we are going a little bit long here. This was great. I had a great time doing this episode. We'll definitely have to have John back for another Squadcast later on. But I want to wrap up this episode with one final prediction. You're not allowed to pick the Rangers.
All right.
Who's winning the Stanley Cup this season?
Oh boy. Jeez. I just got done talking up the Hurricanes. I feel like with that core still in place, I feel like sooner or later it could eventually be their year. It would be boring to pick a team like Tampa that's, always going to the finals, or, like the Avalanche has kind of become like a de facto answer here. So I'll go against the grain a little bit. And since you told me I can't pick the Rangers, of course, I will go ahead and I will pick the Carolina Hurricanes to get it done.
Yeah, well, we're not allowed to pick the Blue Jackets for this, so it seems only fair.
Fair enough. What do you got? Rangers, right? Gotta be Rangers. No.
Yeah, obviously. No, I'm picking. I've been saying this kind of all off season, and I hate it. Long-time Blue Jackets listeners, locked on Blue Jackets listeners will know my feud with the Dallas Stars. I just have a feeling about them.
Okay.
I think they are a sneaky good team, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them make the final and maybe win a cup this season. They've got the ageless wonder, Joe Pavelski. They've got Jason Robertson, who's going to turn out to be really, really good.
Yeah.
Rupe Hintz. I think Miro Heiskanen is one of the most underrated defensemen in this league. It's Jake Ottinger, a goal. Speaking of good young goalies, like it's tough to bet against the Dallas Stars.
You're
really
kind of talking me into that one a little bit. Yeah, I could see that. The Stars are kind of a sneaky good team. I will agree with that.
Since I can't pick the Blue Jackets, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. There's not very many other teams that can win the Stanley Cup. No, I'm going to pick a team that actually does have a couple of Blue Jackets players on it, and that's the Seattle Kraken. And I'm talking about Oliver Bjorkstrand and Alexander Wenberg, both players that I've enjoyed watching. But it's Matty Beniers out there that has been the highlight so far. And, man, what an awesome rookie year he had. Helped them get as deep as they got. They went 7 games with the Dallas Stars. So got a feeling that they'll be right back in the mix again next year. And they stole my heart. Those jerseys are pretty cool on ice. It took me a couple seasons to get used to them, but they're pretty sweet.
Yeah, they impressed me in the playoffs last year. That's a team that seems to be built for playoff hockey, and they seem to have a lot of depth. Not like superstar laden, but just a lot of good, solid, hardworking players. So I like that pick too. I think I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of FanDuel something or other that we can make here. I don't know, but yeah.
Parlay 3 Stanley Cup winners.
I don't think that works. I kind of realized halfway through that it doesn't work that way. But yeah,
no. The Kraken, I feel like, are one of those teams that are more than the sum of their parts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is always fun. I think the Blue Jackets had a team like that for a while, and I think the Rangers are a little bit like that as well. Because I never think about this. No offense to the Rangers, but I never think about them as having a bunch of like superstars. Obviously, Panarin is great. Adam Fox is one of the best young D-men in the league. Shesterkin, but I always think about them as a team that's more than the sum of their parts. So, the Kraken kind of have the same build, I think.
Yeah.
They're not flashy. They just get the job done.
Yeah. Two years ago with the Rangers, that was definitely true. That run, were they like the best team in the league? No, but some years you just have it. You just have the right mojo and the right group of players, and everything just comes together and you can make a run at it. So yeah, wow. Cannot wait to start some hockey here. And what are we down to? A month, you said? A month to go in the season?
It's a month as of the day we are recording this. So we're recording this on the Tuesday, just for people who are listening. This episode is a Friday episode, I believe, but we're almost there, guys. We're almost back to hockey. If people want to keep up with the Rangers, if they want to check in on how Artemi Panarin is doing, where can our listeners find you and your show, John?
Yeah, so wherever you're listening to this or watching this, obviously we're there. We're available on any audio streaming service that you can think of, and of course also available on YouTube. And then you can follow the show's Twitter handle at @LO_NY_Rangers. And
thank you for listening to today's interview with Locked On Rangers, Jon Chik. Thank you for making this your first listen every day. Monday, we're going to be talking about Traverse City and how the Jackets did in Traverse City. Obviously, Thursday's game kind of didn't really work out with the ice, so Jay and I both have some interesting things to say about that. But you can find me on Twitter at HaydenH971. You can find Jay on Twitter at _JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show on Twitter at LO_Blue Jackets. You can also email us directly any content that you may want to hear. LockedOnBlueJackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening, and until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.